So what we talk a bit about in the course is this idea of the mindset of the homeowner, because I think it's really important to approach this process from a perspective. And architects, designers, and builders are essential to the process. Their feedback is essential. I think you should work with them and work with them in an open and honest manner. But at the same time, they're not the ones who are going to live in the home. You're going to live there. You're the one that's going to have uh, to be a part of the decisions that you're making in the plans. And that means that you have a really vital role to play in the design. And homeowners are different. Some just want to hand it off to the designer or architect and say, make it happen, I'm going to be fine. But others want to actually be involved and make sure that their needs are being accounted for. And that really happens in the plans. And I think that by being comfortable with the plans, you can look at them, work with the architect or designer, and find ways to make sure that the house supports your lifestyle, supports the level of livability you want, and your daily rituals. And we'll talk more about how that works. And I think that by understanding the plans, you can also save time and money by getting it right the first time. And that's really the challenge. That's where a lot of the overages come from in home construction, is when maybe you didn't look closely enough at the plans early on. And then once it's built, you realize, oh, that's not what I thought it was going to be. We have to rebuild it. And if you can avoid that, that can really help the project stay on budget. So let's focus on the site plan for just a moment to kind of set the stage for the floor plan. So our first house is a site plan of a house on a larger rural lot. The site plan is often one of the first plans you're going to see, and it's often based on a survey that's happened from on the property that shows where the property lines are and where the corners of the house are on the property. And it shows a combination of the future house on the site plan, as well as the features on the property around it. So in this example, I'm highlighting trees that are part of this plan. It also establishes something important about the orientation of the house. So not if a house is facing a view or something, it's really important to make sure that it is oriented in the right way so that it maximizes where the view is. And by seeing the house in the context of the property, you can get a very clear idea of if that orientation is correct. So in the site plan, you'll see a few different things. They're usually indicated with different sort of marks, like lines and hash marks. So you'll see, of course, the footprint of the home, which is the sort of insulated, lived-in area of the home. In this example, we also see the roof overhang, which is something that is important considering the orientation, because maybe in places where the sun hits the home, you want more or less overhang. So that's an important thing to note, along with built things like the deck and the driveway. And so you'll get a sense of the proportion and scale of all those things relative to the house's footprint. So looking a little bit more closely, there's lots of lines and numbers here. One of the ones to notice is you'll see some basic home dimensions. In this case, this side of the house is 27 feet wide. And the architect or designer are likely to add some notes about how the house is going to be constructed from a really high level. So an example here is a note about how this part of the house is going to be cantilevered over a sloped part of the ground. Also, another really important piece of data about the home is the finished floor elevation, which is marked there. And so you'll also see on here these sort of topographical lines that indicate slope and elevation. And there's just a couple of key things to know about these lines and numbers. So I'll give you an example here. If you look down at the lower left here, you'll see this green line that beside it on the plan, there's the 255 feet above sea level number. And so each of these lines represents 1 foot of elevation change. So if I highlight another line here that's 245 feet, what the plan is telling us is that between these two lines is 10 feet of elevation change. And so when you're looking at the plan thinking, okay, well, here's where the deck is. What am I going to see when I look out on the deck? Well, you're going to see the ground sloping down away from you. And so that's an indication of the sort of topographical look of the property. So with those basics in line, let's go ahead and look at a floor plan. So the floor plan is often based on discussions or a questionnaire where you've worked with a designer or architect to understand your needs, your lifestyle, your expectations, and budget. And it's really the source for the construction project. Once the plans are permitted, you have a building permit, and everything is set, then it is the source for almost every team that's working on the project to be able to see where things go, how big or small they are, and how to build them. And really, the message of today is that this is the plan is an opportunity for you to design your home, to be a part of that process, and to be able to work productively with the architect or designer. So in the process of creating the Navigator course, we interviewed a lot of homeowners about their experiences and what they had learned. And one of them, Darren Barefoot, used to work in stage productions and working with set designs where they have to get these sets on and off the stage for each scene. And he told me a mantra they had at that time called, if it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage. And I think that's a great mantra for homeowners to have when they're thinking about the floor plan, is if it's not in the plans, it's not going to get built. Because the plans are the source, you've got to be really detail oriented and make sure that you understand how things are going to be built. And so the floor plan really defines the house's shape and exactly what will get built. And you can think of it as sort of representing an overhead view, as if you could take the roof off the house and look down, what would you see? And that's really the floor plan. So we're going to be using this example, which obviously looks quite complicated, but we're going to make sense of most of it. This version combines multiple elements, including windows and door specifications. Your architect or designer may have a different approach to the floor plan, so just note that your mileage may vary. These are not perfectly standard. So, of course, you'll see the framed walls of the house. These are often insulated walls or walls that define rooms, along with windows and doors. You'll see here in light blue. So the combination of walls and windows and doors should kind of represent everything that surrounds the home. And you'll see things like the names of each room along with the flooring type. And you can see this bedroom has an engineered wood floor, and you can see the vertical lines. This is how you can indicate across the whole home what sort of flooring will be used and which orientation will the boards be laid. It also includes the locations of features and fixtures and appliances, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. There's also things you're likely to see like code required elements. And this is an example of showing the egress from a bedroom or a smoke detector. Part of the reason this is here is so that when a building plan is being reviewed by the people doing the permit, these things are very clear that they can see that. And this helps your plans get through the permitting process by them being very visible in the plan. So let's look at a couple of little details here that you're likely to see. And so you can see inside the circle here, there's the abbreviation RO. This stands for rough opening. So there's going to be a window here that's 8 feet wide. And that means when the framers build the building, they will have a rough opening of 8 feet. And then later, when you order windows, very detailed measurements will be made to construct the windows. So everything starts with a rough opening, as you can see here. So along with these rough openings for each window is also a circle with a letter in them. And you can see here we have an L, M, N, P. So these indicates the type of window for each opening. And each of the letters maps to something called the window schedule, which is often a part of the floor plan. It may be on its own sheet, but we can see that each of these letters is connected to a table that shows you data on each kind of window, and also probably a version of the windows with a diagram with dimensions, and it shows which way the windows open. And so once you know how to read this part of it, you can go through every window in the plan and double check that it's the window you want working the way that you want. So this is a key thing to notice. Same is true with doors. We'll look at interior doors here. You can see that there's doors in this hallway that all have the number 7. So these are using using numbers instead of letters. And we can see that on the door schedule, a door with a 7 is a 2 foot 6 door by 7 foot door. And so I'll just say one thing about doors. As the homeowner, you can say, you know what? I think I want wider doors. What if we had a 3 foot wide door instead, or something in the middle? That's totally possible, totally something that architects and designers are happy to work with you on. So keep that in mind as just something that you can make bigger if you want. So speaking of doors, this plan indicates which way they open or which way they swing. And you can see here in the diagram that the doors have little lines that show which way they swing. And this can seem kind of like a detail, but it really matters in the convenience and livability of your home, because once the doors are ordered and arrive, it's much harder to make them work in a different way. So you want to be really diligent about making sure they work for you. So overall, the floor plan is really your just best resource for understanding the house's layout. And the layout really relates to convenience and livability. And I'm going to show you a couple of ways to think about that. The first is this idea of flow. And a really important point here is imagining how you'll use the space, like what paths are most common. So I'm going to show you a couple here. This is from the bedrooms to the bathroom. This is something that people are going to use multiple times a day, probably. And making sure that it works the way that you want it to work is really important. Another one is moving from the kitchen to the powder room and back is probably going to be a common path, or the entry into the home. And so, the key here is asking yourself, on a room by room basis in the floor plan, what are the activities that are going to be happening in that room? And then how do those activities connect to other rooms? And what's the flow? What's the pattern of flow in that? And making sure that the doors swing the right way, the lighting is in the right place. That's a really big key to maximizing floor plans. So another thing to consider in this is, imagine that you are standing in a doorway looking into a room. And what are you going to see? What are visitors going to see? So if it's a bathroom, there might be a toilet visible or a window. And you might think, gosh, I don't want visitors to see a toilet. I'm going to make this door swing a different way, or I'm going to move the toilet to a different location so that doesn't happen. So try to put yourself in the space, looking through a door, and imagine how it will work. So another idea that architects and designers will be focused on is this idea of alignment. That are the major elements, the major structures of the house aligned in a way that's pleasing. Like you want a design to be harmonious and to feel like there's a good sense of proportion. And these are looking at the major elements, and I'm going to draw a line here. Like this is something that comes all the way down the hallway and across the front of this kitchen island. So you can see there's a very specific line there that's lined up really nicely. The same thing with this exterior wall, across the other side of the house, the wall of the bedroom going across that way. And then even within the bedroom, that the window is lined up with the entry of the door there. So these are all things to look for. If you see things, talk to your architect or designer. They're happy to help you work through what you think would be better. So really another quick example here. So what we're looking at here is a kitchen, and you can see there's an island here. So this kitchen has 3 windows on the right side. You can see the 3 P's here. And so these windows are above the counter, and they really help define the kitchen space. And it's dividing it sort of in 3 sections here, right? So these sort of divide the kitchen into thirds. So you think about, well, what are the three things that are going to line up in rows here? And also, if you think about it starting right from the middle, you can see that in this case, the range and hood in the kitchen are lined up to be exactly in the middle of the middle window. And so this creates a nice sense of symmetry. And symmetry can be something that's really important. Not all builders and architects want something perfectly symmetrical, but in this case, I think it's good. And again, just thinking in your plans how windows interact with the interior elements and how things are lined up is a big thing that helps it become more pleasing. So let's talk a little more about fixtures like toilets, islands, and appliances, these locations, because one of the keys to remember is that if you change nothing, if you look at a plan and you say this bathroom is great, it's perfect, then that's what's going to get built. When the plumbers install the toilet hardware or the piping, they're going to do it like it's in the plan, unless you talk to them or unless you make changes in the plan first. So be really diligent about that. Like anticipate those daily use, the activities, the rituals that you do every day. An example here that I like to bring up is, most families make coffee or tea in the mornings. And so that's something that you can design for. You can think about, I'm going to have a coffee station. There's going to be an outlet where I plug in the coffee maker, a place for coffee grounds, a sink nearby, a place for mugs, a place for coffee. It's just one small example of understanding what are the activities that are going to happen and how the design can support it. So, take the time that it takes to study the floor plan. And I really encourage you to make changes on paper because paper is the most affordable place to make changes. You really want to avoid glossing over the plans and trying to make changes once things become three-dimensional because it's much more expensive. So another plan that you're likely to see that's really important to understand is the electrical plan. So this is the example we're going to use today. It really shows all the locations of fixtures and outlets and other things like internet connections throughout the home, mostly things that are embedded in the walls and are hard to move once the drywall goes on. So it's important to get them right early. Like the floor plan, there are a couple of elements that really help for you to understand. The plan will have all kinds of annotations on it and abbreviations. Those all map to a symbol key for the electrical plan. They are pretty consistent across projects. But over time, you'll get to learn what each of the symbols mean, and you can just look at the plan and understand it. So I'm going to walk you through a few of those just to give you an example. Right now, we're focused on a primary bedroom here. And we're going to think about it being nighttime and you're going to bed and you want to go through the entry and you want to turn on the light, right? This is something we do every night and turn on the light. And how does that happen? What makes the most sense there? So in this plan, we can see that there's a switch by the door, which totally makes sense. But we can also see that that switch, because there's a line coming from the switch, you can see that it also connects to these 8 lights. So that is a single circuit. That switch controls the circuit. And so by looking a little more closely, we can see what that means. So you see this S and D. So that's an annotation that is on the symbol key. And so when you look at the key, you'll see that that means that it's a single switch with dimmer. So again, simple idea that every annotation maps to the key and you can go through the whole plan and make sure you understand what's happening at every location. The same is true with the lights on this circuit. We can see that this also maps to the key. You can see the little ADJ there. That is a 4-inch adjustable recessed can light. So again, just an example here. So this idea of being able to identify everything happens throughout the house, and you'll see it documented, and also remember on paper this can all be changed. You can move lights, you can move switches, you can rearrange things, and that might even include less obvious things like network connections if you have an internal network, or even speakers are on this plan. So lots of opportunities for improvement. So let's look just at this primary bath and talk through multiple switch situations. So here again, we're talking about entering a bathroom and wanting to manipulate the lights and switches. And there are three switches designed into this bathroom. So when you come in the entry, you turn and the switch closest to the door operates these three can lights. The second switch here operates an exhaust fan from the middle switch. And then the third light operates wall sconces around the bathroom. So remember, if you make no changes to this plan, it will get built this way. The electricians will look at the plan and do the switches in this order. So you have an opportunity to ask yourself, are these lights in the right locations? Do I want these sconces and these can lights to be in the right place? And are the switches in the order that you want on the wall? Like, would you rather have the exhaust fan third versus second, right? These are all changes that you can make, and they extend throughout all the plans. So in thinking about these examples, your architect and electrician and your builder may be the best resource. I really encourage you to talk to them, ask questions, ask why things are designed the way they are. You'll learn, but you'll also find opportunities to improve. So a really quick example here about three-way switches, which is a source of confusion for some homeowners. So I'm hoping that this example will help. So imagine that you're going to bed and you enter and you turn the bedroom lights on, right? So they're on, and then you walk into the bedroom, maybe you change clothes, get to bed and think, oh, now I have to get up and go back to the door to turn the lights off, right? So this is a use case, a common use case for a three-way light where no, actually you have another set of lights, another switch, I'm sorry, beside the bed that are connected to the set by the door that allow you to turn the lights off from the bed. So that's the basic idea of three-way switches, is multiple switches that control a single circuit of lights. And so again, your builder and architect will have a lot more information about the best locations to do that and how to think about it. It does often need to be built into the wiring, so you'll need to plan ahead. If you're interested in working on your own floor plans and want it to be really easy and not having to learn something like CAD, there are a number of products out there like the Room Planner app, Room Sketcher, and Floor Planner. These are something we mentioned in the Navigator course, and they can help you get started more quickly. I do want to note that as a policy for Build Livable, we don't have any professional relationships with products or third parties. We don't earn any income from discussing or recommending products or services. That's just part of our business that I wanted you to know about. So as we're closing up here, you have an opportunity to design your home. Make changes on paper. Really, really try to get them done on paper first because it's the most affordable way. Think about the activities, the flow of the home, your lifestyle and your daily rituals and how those can influence the design. And remember that building a home is often stressful, and relief from that stress comes from having realistic expectations and a clear understanding of the process. And that's really been my goal today in this presentation, is to help build some of that knowledge and comfort with you.